thousands of years to work out. And those strategies, I mean, some of them are as simple as planting trees extensively and using things like biochar, the scale of which would have to be massive. And some of them are technological and to be proven out. But it's not to say that they won't play a role in the future as well. So anyway, we have a pretty packed agenda, and thank you all for joining. John Bradley has his hand up, so go ahead, John.
Unintentional. It was like a butt call.
Okay. So we're going to ignore that. Let me go back to our agenda here. We have one more thing to add to the agenda, which is Terrence Duval wanted to talk about coordinating efforts with CACs and other groups in the county. So we'll do that at the end. The first thing is the Climate Carnival. We won't spend a lot of time on this, obviously, but I know that the organizing group had a call yesterday. Unfortunately, I was unable to make it, so I'd love to hear a quick update from the organizers. And just first of all, I'd just like to say, wow, what a great job. There were so many people involved, and I see several of them on the screen in front of me right now. The amount of work that went into this, I would also want to recognize, in addition to Jolene and Tistria, Don Meltz, who is not on this call, but did a tremendous amount of work. There were so many emails. There was so much work that went into that, and it went, I think, better than we could have expected. That's how I would put it forward. So those are my 2 cents. But does Jolene or Tistria, would you like to just give us a quick kind of
Jolene, you want me to take this
summary?
one? Sure. Okay. So David summed it up. It was tremendous. It was just phenomenal. The feedback that we've been getting from county staff, from residents, from extremely complimentary and positive. And it was our first year ever doing it. So at the follow-up meeting, I only was at the very beginning of it. But it was very clear that everybody wants to do it again. And there's obviously logistics that need to be figured out of when. We do need to get a fair date confirmed pretty soon. So that subgroup is hoping to meet again soon. We'd like schools to be involved. So the idea of having it in the summer makes it so a lot of our high schools and colleges can't, which basically leaves like April and May, or September, maybe beginning of October. And just looking at, is the spring more rainy? Could the fall be cold? Like, what really looks like the best there? And I don't think there was a consensus at yesterday's meeting as far as a date, but there was definitely a consensus that the fairgrounds is the right venue and that we want to do it again. So what I was hoping for is this committee to pass a motion, which I'm happy to make, but first we'll open it to conversation, to pass a motion requesting that the Board of Supervisors approve us as a county starting to work on the event again. Again, details are to be determined. It's not, it's similar to the resolution we passed last time that just says, we authorize the task force and county departments to work on this event. There is the idea of potentially collaborating with an organization, maybe the CLC, maybe others, where the county, we're still happy to do all the work, but when it comes to it being an official county event, there also comes a lot of strings attached that prevented a lot of participation from groups that might have wanted to participate. So, if on paper only kind of thing, CLC was the fiscal sponsor. If on paper only, it could be maybe a co-sponsored, the county and CLC or another group, we could work out the details. But at the end of the day, we as the county are still happy to do the printing, do the work, be involved. We could have this same to join. And there's literally vendors already wanting to sign up for next year, wanting to put it on their calendar. So I guess at this point, I'm asking for this task force to pass a motion. Again, I'm happy to make it, but I want to open it to discussion first. Just asking of the Board of Supervisors to authorize us as a task force to start planning a 2023 Climate Carnival with all the details to be determined. Yeah, Brenda.
I'd be happy to make that motion, but I would also like to have the Board of Supervisors acknowledge the success of this in some kind of a resolution as well, because I think it was beyond anything that we could ever have expected. And, Jolene and Wendy and Tistria and all of the task force and the volunteers, I mean, it was just a beaming day. There was not a way that you could not be happy in that group on that day. So I think we need to acknowledge beyond our little group here, the work that did go into this, and I'd like to see a public acknowledgement by the Board of Supervisors. The only other summary question I have is I've been asked by dozens of people, how many people were there? Do we have any idea how many people were there?
We did not do a ticker, unfortunately. I did used to put on tens of thousands of people events. So relatively good grasp, I think, of kind of my guess would be throughout the day, we had between 1,200 and 1,500 people would be my guess. I don't know how others feel, but when I looked at how many people were there pretty consistently, we were certainly above 1,000. I would guess we were not above 1,500, but I don't know if others have guesses that are different from mine.
So one of the things we might do, and I'll say this to the committee, is even if the event turns out to be at no charge again next year, we might issue stickers. So at least we'd have a sticker account of how many stickers, something for people to wear in their T-shirts, walk out with, but it would help us do a count of how many people are there. But
there also are automatic counters. I know CLC has some of those at their PCAs. I don't know if those are options, but we can get into that later. So. Yeah. Are there any other questions, comments before we go forward with a motion to authorize the continued work on the 2023 Carnival? Any other comments or questions?
So I'd love to make a motion then, David. Okay. I'd like to make a motion requesting that the Board of Supervisors authorize the Climate Smart Task Force to begin planning the 2023 second annual Climate Carnival, and for the chairman via proclamation or resolution to recognize the tremendous work and success of our first annual event. And Wendy said her mic's not working. Did you have something to add, Wendy? No.
I would second the motion.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, please speak out. I can't see everyone. Okay. Having heard none, passes unanimously.
So Patrice, I know that wasn't a written resolution, but could you prepare whatever would need to be prepared to bring that to the August county government meeting? Okay, thank you.
Great.
Right. There we go. Sorry. I double clicked by mistake. Yes, I will do that.
Thank you, Patrice. Thank you, everyone, for your tremendous work. And, especially, again, Jolene, Wendy, and Don. And a thank you to Patrice, too, because Don is one of her employees, and she so graciously shared his wonderful expertise, which I hadn't had a chance to work with him before. And he is just an amazing, amazing human and has a lot of great gifts and skill sets. So thank you to Patrice and Jolene as the department heads that really were generous in allowing us to put on such a successful event. And I mean, Wendy was there setting up the free store before I even knew the free store was there. I showed up and she had things already. It was just tremendous. And I will say too, especially Jolene, Wendy, and Don, most of the work that they did on their own personal time as volunteers. And so employees, and of course, they did some work from their office, from their official capacity. The three of them went above and beyond at nighttime when they were off the clock, coming to set up on Saturday, on Sunday. So thank you to the three of you for volunteering your efforts as well.
You're here. Agree wholeheartedly with everything that's been said. And I still feel inspired by that day, and we'll carry that forward. It's the type of thing that is the antidote to the cynicism that can affect us at times. And that's the way forward. So it's a great model. Did we get one last question? Did we get any interesting press around it, written or otherwise? I know that ahead of time we took out an advertisement and maybe got a couple other things written up, but was there anything, did anyone show up and report on it?
Yeah, I was surprised there was no article afterwards in the Columbia paper, which I was surprised about.
Yeah.
we got plenty of publicity before, but apparently there were a couple TV stations. Someone yesterday, Deb was talking about she had been contacted by a couple TV stations, but I don't think they were going to cover it. They maybe
that for next year.
Yeah.
Well, it also we might want to send a press release out, right? It might take writing a press release on, first annual climate carnival, hugely successful next year, stay tuned or something. And we might have to actually draft that press release and send it out to all the press contacts. So maybe we can ask Deb if she can write something up. Bruce, do you mind emailing Deb? And
I'll take care of it right after this meeting. I'll get in touch with her. Yeah, that's a good idea. I will do that.
I think we can leverage this for even more publicity next time. Inviting TV reporters to come and interview people, encouraging that. If we can get some video of what's going on there and amplify the message out to a broader group, we could do our own thing on YouTube. We could have, find a young journalism student to come do interviews and post something ourselves. There's all sorts of cool stuff we should do next time. But a great first year. Amazing. So very exciting. Let's move on. The adaptation and resilience plan update. So Wendy, do you want to give us an update? I know there's been some internal meetings based on, to get everyone up to speed. We had passed a resolution at a special meeting to recommend that the Board of Supervisors agree to this proposal from DEC and CDRPC to fund and have Cornell Cooperative provide the technical draft a adaptation and resilience plan. There were some legitimate concerns raised there about county resources and how that would be worked out. And then there were a series of meetings that have happened since that meeting. So I think Wendy's going to give us an update, and perhaps Tara too, on where we're at with that.
Wendy's microphone's not working.
All right. Did you get Wendy? Shake your head if you can, or say something. I guess you're still mute.
She can't get her mic working.
Okay. Can someone else give the update?
I'm happy to, or Patrice or Jolene. So I'll start, and then if I miss anything, please, Jolene and Patrice and Wendy via the text box chime in, or Tara. So we had at the resolution, or the request was brought to county government, and Patrice voiced some concerns with moving forward without having some of her questions answered. And so the resolution got put on hold. And then we had a great meeting with CDRPC and Cornell. And large picture overview, DEC is funding a pilot program for these resiliency plans. And our region is getting 16 funded. And CDRPC is the one getting the funding, and they would then contract with Cornell Cooperative Extension to do the work. And the idea is an even bigger pilot, instead of just going to these individual communities, which I know New Lebanon would jump on in a minute, because we have such an active task force at the county and we've been so successful, they thought, why don't we try to do a county resiliency plan where we then also invite each and every town within the county to participate. And so at the end of the day, let's just say that 10 towns sign on. That would be 11 plans. We would have the county plan as one overarching plan that, of course, would talk about individual towns and some of their challenges. But then from that, it would be very easy to pull out and carve out a town plan that was specific for the town. It's a brand new program, so it could go a number of ways. There was the idea of, do we just do the county plan and then within the county plan talk about, some differences in some towns? I advocated strongly as a town supervisor of a town that really wants a resiliency plan for our town, that in future grant applications, projects, things like that, it would really be beneficial for us to be able to say, we as a town board have adopted a resiliency plan for our town. So I kind of pushed for it to be a county plus any individual town. And it seemed like CDRPC was in agreement, and that DEC also seemed to prefer to see it that way. Each and every town that wants to participate can participate, so they don't have to be a climate smart community. The county will pass a resolution, and then a resolution will be sent to each and every town supervisor and the city of Hudson to say, would you, in addition to the, participating through the county plan, would you like to work on one for your own municipality? And then we would need to form a subcommittee, I think, of the task force. And that subcommittee might have representation from the towns. We also don't want it to be an unwieldy group. So like for New Lebanon, for example, Steve is the chair of our task force and he's also on this county committee. So he could be one of the members of the subcommittee for the county and serve both the town and county role. And those types of details, we really, it's open. It's a moving target. So if we think one way is going to work and we're like, that might need to be moved a little bit. The resolution as it was drafted didn't really fit what the county needs. So after that meeting, it was really great. Patrice got all her questions answered. Wendy and Jolene got any questions they had answered. We clarified a lot. And then Supervisor Knott got all his questions answered and was then very much in support of moving forward. And he offered to work with Patrice and the county attorney to draft a resolution that fits more into the county model. I also asked him if he would reach out to the chair of county government to request a special meeting, because although this isn't an emergency situation, there's only 16 plans that are funded. So if Columbia County doesn't pass a resolution till our September meeting, a whole month and a half away, there's a possibility that other towns or counties could come forward and say, hey, we want to do that. And they could sign on quicker than we do. So I felt it was important, since all the questions had been answered and everyone was now on board, it was important that we try to get it through at our August full board meeting. So Supervisor Knott agreed to request a special county government committee meeting. I requested a special finance meeting and then to the full board. So my question also for this committee, and then I'll be quiet and see if I missed anything from Patrice or Jolene or Wendy's perspective or others' perspective. My idea was that I did just yesterday get a resolution from Supervisor Knott that I didn't get a chance to send out, but I'm happy to read it today. And I know we already had a special meeting, but not everyone was present. I know we already voted to ask the board to do this, but I'm wondering now that we have a written resolution, if we could actually motion a request that the Board of Supervisors pass this specific resolution, just as another level. But I'll be quiet now and see if Jolene or Patrice or Wendy or Tara or others that were on the call have anything that I missed or may have gotten wrong.
I don't have anything to add. You
Great.
did a great job summarizing all of the steps. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrice.
That was a great recap, Tistria. I am on my phone now, so I have, can you all hear me? I just want to let you know that they did say up to 16 communities. We did ask the question, what happens if all of our entire county wanted to get on board? And they said, great, if that's the case. So, I mean, although it is limited to 16, Tara, correct me if I'm wrong, but they did say if the entire community of all the counties or townships got involved, that would be okay as well, correct?
That's correct. Absolutely. Okay. The more the merrier. So, yeah. And I just wanted to say that we have Kelsey here, Kelsey West from Cornell, Columbia Green with us. She's actually going to be, many of you may know her, but to introduce her if you don't, she's actually with her team going to be working on this resiliency plan. Hopefully once the county passes the resolution and the towns and villages and city that want to participate, but just as a way of introduction.
So then also moving forward, when this does start taking place, as Tistria did mention, we are going to have workshops and areas where we're going to need volunteers that may not necessarily be sitting on one of this on the CARP committee, but also, so just to keep in your thoughts that we will be looking for volunteers moving forward for specific workshops, as in, meeting with residents, assessing and understanding vulnerabilities, gathering information within the community, and that kind of thing. So just kind of be aware and in tune. And if there's anyone local in your community that would be interested in this as well, jot down their name and keep it, because this is going to be a joint effort. It's going to be a huge effort. And the more hands to collect information for Kelsey and Cornell Cooperative Extension, on behalf of the county will be helpful.
So I have a question about how that maybe that was an answer to it, Wendy, but how people in this task force and perhaps if we go out to our town task forces, CACs and others, how we can feed information in early as to specific stakeholders or stakeholder groups that likely have valuable information and input that may not otherwise be heard. I'm thinking there should be a big focus on the farming community, agricultural community. There also could be a focus on folks that work in our woodlands and those people that are, there are many of them that are affected by changes in our forests. Those types of natural resources that are that don't always pop up. So how do we feed in information? How will we? I mean, it's a little early, I guess. There'll be a process if we're not on that committee.
Sorry.
No, that's it. That's my question.
One thing we talked about that I think makes sense and feeds into what you're talking about is having a subcommittee of this committee that is kind of like the hub, but then breaking it off into groups. For example, county government. So Jolene and Patrice and Wendy and David Harrison are emergency management. Like they might have a subcommittee of the subcommittee that not all of them are task force members, but there's at least one. There's one task force member that heads off this other conversation. So for example, David, you might be the farming liaison, right? And then your job is to reach out to farmers across the county. And we as task force members and supervisors can help connect you with the farmers in our community. And you guys might be having separate meetings with a list from Kelsey of what types of things are we looking to brainstorm, what types of things and then you're going to bring that back to this hub that's a subcommittee of this committee, because we don't want the subcommittee of this committee to be 50 people, right? Because that's just, you're not going to have a successful meeting with that many people. And so the subcommittee of this committee is really doing, and similar to the climate carnival, we had our subcommittee, but then like Bruce went and worked with Adelia on the repair cafe. I went and worked with Mark on the bike repair. I went and worked with a group of people on the free store, right? So
yeah.
And I don't know if that's kind of what Tara and Kelsey and Wendy were seeing, but that's what we had mentioned that I think would make sense because we want to make sure we're hearing from all these different contingencies. And I think also part of it is we're going to have public input sessions. And I think part of the role that we can play is to make sure that people show up to those or email ahead of time their input. We could do surveys, online surveys for people that don't have time to come to a meeting, but late at night they could, enter some information, data gathering. And so a lot of the tasks that I felt from our meeting is like, we need to be getting it out to our communities so that people know that we need their input, that we need to hear from them. And that's a big role because Kelsey's going to do the work, but we need to be the boots on the ground helping to gather the information that she's looking for.
Right. Great. That makes a lot of sense. Now, when do we need to create this committee by? I mean, obviously we have to wait for it to pass, but is there work to be done between now and then where we have any reason to gather? If not, should we do this at our next meeting? What are your thoughts on that? When do we need the committee in place?
I think just by way of process, we're trying to make sure the resolution is, going to get adopted. And, if it gets delayed another month, then to, just kind of watch that process. But then the next step, I think, will be to engage the municipalities that want to be a part of this and then think about the committee structures. Does that make sense to you, Kelsey? I think.
Yeah, I think that would be a great way to go about the initial steps. Yep.
Kind of step by step and just,
That makes sense. What's the process for communicating out to our communities? Will there be a formal communication from whom to the towns, or will this rely on us reaching back out to all the towns? How are we going to communicate? It passes the county. That's this month, hopefully.
I think it should probably come from the chairman of the board to all of the supervisors because the county has adopted this thing and the chairman is the head of the county. And then we're asking towns if they want to participate. I think in addition to the chairman sending out the invite to all the supervisors with the sample resolution, we should actively, obviously in New Lebanon, we don't need to, or Canaan, some of us, Denal, some of us supervisors, Ron Nott, are sitting right here. But especially for those of you whose supervisors aren't involved in this. And I will say at the county, sometimes there's a lot and you can miss that there's this opportunity. So I would say each and every task force member of this task force should also be going to their supervisor and saying, how can we help? We want to sign on, and maybe showing the supervisor that you have a team that's willing to do the work, because that could be one thing that would deter a town supervisor and board from signing on, is they don't want it to fall on them. So, there could be that active engagement of like, hey, we've got a group that wants to work on this here in Ghent. Please pass the resolution so we can be a part of it.
Great.
And I'll just add to that, Tistria. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure that this was,
Sure.
I think in addition to the resolution, we'd like to, provide the chair a one pager. So what is being asked of each community, and is it a representative? Is it, what kind of time commitment? Because we want to make sure that they know what they're signing up for and that it's clear. So we're not getting a bunch of questions from all over that are duplicate.
Great. Brenda, then Wendy.
Tara just said exactly what I was going to say. So I'm on board with that.
Great. This sounds very logical. Wendy?
I was going to suggest the thing as Tara, but I also wanted to reach out to Kelsey as you're the lead, or one of the leads anyway. Is there anything else that you want us to do or to facilitate this? What is it that you're asking of us right now? And what is it that you will want us to do moving forward as this task force, not as a task force that we're going to break off into other things, but is there anything of specifics that you want us to do or not to do right now?
Right now, I think it would really just be great to follow the process that Tara and Tistria outlined. And, we would love to keep an open line of communication as things continue to develop. But other than that, for immediate steps, I'm not really sure if there's much for this task force to participate in, besides obviously kind of coordinating with the municipalities as we continue to reach out to them.
Great.
And can I ask one clarifying question? And this is, I think, a Patrice, Jolene, and Wendy question. In Supervisor Knott's email with the resolution yesterday, he said that it was that we would take it to full board contingent on the state getting us a copy of the CART pilot program. I forwarded that to Tara, and she did send some documents. It didn't say CART pilot. So am I understanding that what Tara got us is what Ron and everyone was looking for in order to feel comfortable proceeding to the August full board, or is there another document that we're still looking for?
We did just get that this morning. And it was, the meeting is at 10. We did a quick look through it. I believe that is, what was being asked in our initial Zoom call that we had. But we haven't had a chance to talk amongst ourselves about it. But it looks like that is the information. It's pretty self-explanatory. It kind of gives the breakdown of everything that they're looking for. And it also, they provide a template. So I believe that is what we were looking for.
Okay, and if anything's missing or you need anything further, you'll just reach out to Tara, and I'm sure she'll get it to you right away. Okay, thanks.
Brenda.
I just wanted to say, I know that this is a BOS issue and not a task force issue, but I have at least 3 issues with a resolution. So I'm not ready to have that resolution approved here today in its present state. I'd like an opportunity to talk with the other supervisors on the task force and before it goes to, so I'm not sure how we manage that piece of it. And I don't know if there are any other supervisors that, I just saw it this morning and I'm not fully accepting of the way it's written. So I'd like to have an opportunity to review it with my peers.
When is that special government meeting?
Right before full board, which is on August 9th.
Oh,
I would say, this task force already motioned to ask the county to work on this. So I don't think we need to pass this specific resolution. And Brenda, I would get together with, Ron, Knott, if me, you, Ron, I would include Wendy, Jolene, Patrice, we could have a side meeting. Okay. But mostly I think Ron and the county attorney and Patrice, right, worked on resolution, or was it just Ron and the county attorney?
There are also
I'm not
some
sure
areas
all the parties that were involved with it, but I did have comment.
Okay.
So I think that's a outside of this group conversation that we need to try and have before the expedited meetings.
Okay. Great.
Thank you all for shepherding this. There's a lot of work there behind the scenes. Thank you to Tara. Thank you to Patrice in particular, and everyone else that was involved in looking at this more closely and really being scrutinizing what would be involved. And it sounds very optimistic, and I think it will be a really important body of work that will inform us for years to come and help us cope. So, and save us money and help us prioritize investments and hopefully qualify for more grant money to help us deal with some of these issues. So thank you all very much for taking this on so seriously and so quickly. Appreciate that. Anything else on this? All right, we're moving. Community solar, it's a quick update, but we do have some discussion and we need some volunteers to help us in Hudson in particular with low and moderate income communities and outreach. I think the last phase of our campaign here, we've done really well. We have at least 130 signups from Neighborhood Sun rather, and a much more modest number from Nexamp. I'm not sure what that was exactly. It would look like 10 to 15 or so. Which I was surprised it was so low, but that's I think the early bird gets the worm or something. But so anyway, we're probably about 150 signups more or less total, which is great. We'd like to do more. We're running this campaign through the end of the calendar year, and we've been talking about being more proactive in reaching out to certain communities that don't know about it, may not know about it, may have some reservations because of some past experiences with, I think they're called ESCOs or other energy service companies that are different than what this is, where they're trying to get you to change over to them. So people may have had bad experiences. So we want to break through that and make sure people understand what the commitment is, what the opportunity is to save money, to do the right thing. And what the obligation or the lack of any long-term obligation is to this type of thing. So we had talked about reaching out to specific groups in Hudson to find events and to then also have a group of us work with the two vendors to provide volunteers to go to these events, to table, to reach out to community leaders. We had brainstormed ideas like contacting the city clerk. That makes sense, to find a list of permitted events. Well, that's an easy thing. Reaching out to folks like the Spark of Hudson, Kites, thinking about Waterfront Wednesdays as an event that we might go to, talking to our friends at RG19. And then Matthew Mercier, who I don't think he could make the meeting today, he's already volunteered to work the farmers market there. And Matt Stinchcombe had also said he would reach out to the library, to Hudson Area Library. There are other ideas, I'm sure, and we can brainstorm them now, but I think we need a group, a small group. We have a group that did work on this initially, but it doesn't need to be the same group of people. So if we have volunteers, I think Matthew and Matt, I'll put them forward because I know that they've already committed to this. I'm happy to be part of this, and I can reach out to a couple of these organizations, Kites Nest, RG19. But there are plenty of other opportunities. And do we have any other volunteers that would want to participate in this effort? Brenda.
I also agreed to reach out to Commissioner Gibson at the Department of Social Services and to Columbia Opportunity program here. But I wanted to have a common document or something that I could leave with them so they could provide it with to their constituents. And one of the supervisors did bring up in the July meeting that the next AMP materials, it was not clear what they were providing. So the sign up disparity may not only be one of timing, it may be one of communication, how clear the message was conveyed to the market.
Yeah.
One of the supervisors had received the next sample letter, and she didn't know what she was being asked to do. So just
yeah. Well, we need to scrutinize the information that's out there now, and think about it through the lens of this outreach effort, to make sure that it's as clear as possible for everyone. But if there's any additional information, maybe language translations, that could be, I don't know, could be a lot of work. It could also be something that's really useful to some of our communities, like the Bengali community and others in Hudson. So Brenda, yeah, I hear you. It's on the list. We need to come up with maybe a one-page fact sheet. That sound right? Like a PDF that you can email out. All right.
Or they can hand out to their customers too. Just when they come in for various services, this is a handout they could be given. So
yeah, or maybe posters as well that could be hung up in town, and we can work with Neighborhood Sun and Nexamp on producing those.
And the other thing I would be happy to do, I don't think I mentioned it before, is to take it to the Office of the Aging and make sure that all of the community representatives on the Office of the Aging committee have this information and can distribute it within their communities.
Yeah.
Because that's another area of, older people are really on fixed income, so they can't run an air conditioner 24/7, but yet they're more susceptible, or can be more susceptible, to heat. So
good point.
Every little bit helps.
Absolutely. 10% helps. So do we have any other folks that want to help us out with this? It could also be outside of our task force. I'm going to try to rope Michael O'Hara into this as well. And are there other folks on the call here? If you are so inclined to want to lean in on this, please let me know. We need to create a little momentum. We need the big mo. All right, I'm pausing. I'm stalling. I'm waiting, and I'm hoping for a deluge of emails after this. I want to be in. Sign me up. Okay. I will stop beating that dead horse. Is there anything else on community solar? I don't know if Kara's on. I don't think there's any other update other than this. This is our final push. We will be getting, we missed out on the $15,000 grant, sadly, but we will be getting funding from the subscribers. So I don't remember exactly the limit on the stipends that's being given to the county, and the presumably split with the towns. That's how it's going to work. So if it's a particular town that participated, then we're going to ask the providers to provide a list of all the subscribers at the end of the project by town, and then we'll tally it up, and we'll have them issue a single check to each town that has subscribers, and then to the county, which should be a significant amount of money. And we'll hope that once we get that, we can then have that set aside for our work in the future and earmarked. I don't know how that works from a budgeting standpoint. And then also there's a $5,000 grant for the benchmarking work, which we're going to talk about in a couple bullets, which also would fit into that category. And I'm sure there'll be other opportunities for us to be getting funding for these various efforts. So Brenda.
So did we miss the $15,000 because it was exhausted by the time our outreach was done?
Yes.
Okay, so it was our decision-making timeline. Okay, yep. Just want to be aware of that.
Yep. We missed it by a small margin.
Thank you.
Matter of weeks. Okay, let's move on. Steve Powers, our friend from the Northeast Kingdom of the county, is going to give us an update on their clean heating, cooling, and efficiency campaign, which is something that I personally think we should be considering at the county level, and we'll talk about that later. But Steve, can you just give us a quick update on what that is, where it fits in the overall scheme of CEC and CSC, and what you're doing or what you've done in New Lebanon?
Sure, thanks. And this is the perfect day, I think, to talk about heat pumps. I just posted an article that was in the Washington Post last week or so. It's very interesting to read if you have an opportunity. New Lebanon just completed our heat pump campaign. Basically, at the town level, you only need 5 residents to purchase them, and you get a $5,000 grant also from NYSERDA, as well as 500 points in the CEC scorecard. At the county level, we would need 10 purchases, and the county would get $15,000 grants. Process is similar to community solar in that a scoping document has to be submitted and approved by NYSERDA. Any signups, any purchases would only qualify after the scoping document is approved by NYSERDA. We had 3 webinars with our vetted supplier, which is Rycor. Many of you may have met him at the Climate Carnival. We're also continuing to promote it at the farmers market, which here in town every Sunday that we have. So we're going to continue to push the program. I know we'll get at least, I think, another 5 to 10 signups here based on what people have indicated. So the county can piggyback on what we're doing. And, I think it's another example of low-hanging fruit that the county should take advantage of. Also, when I initially talked to the suppliers that we had vetted, none of them had offered an incentive like Community Solar does initially. And then when Tistria met with them at the with the sales manager at Rycor at the county fair at Climate Carnival, the guy indicated, yes, we can do that. So I went back to him afterwards, and Rycor has indicated that they are prepared to offer incentives to the county as well as individuals to sign up and purchase heat pumps. So that's good, and we will get them retroactively. Tistria, don't worry, for those who died. So basically, that's it. I don't know if there's any questions anybody has about it, but I'm certainly willing to help with the scoping document, whatever else needs to get done. Brenda?
So I'm sorry not to know more about this, but you mentioned individuals. What if businesses or municipalities purchase heat pumps? Do those count?
Businesses count, municipalities no.
Okay.
And basically, like Community Solar, you submit a spreadsheet with the date they were installed, the address, and the company name that installed it. And that's it.
And with the public library, we're thinking about doing an install in our public library. Would that be considered a business, or would that be considered a municipality?
Good question. Tara, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, that would probably just be a business. They just don't want municipalities because there's another action in the program where if you install heat pumps in your building, municipal building, you get points. So they don't want communities to double dip, but the library should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
And Steve, this is not just, you probably said this earlier, but I just want to be clear. It's not just the heat pumps or the mini splits, but it's energy efficiency.
Right. No, I didn't say that. Good point. Yeah. It's energy efficiency upgrades as well.
And what would qualify? Heat pump, I get it. You install the unit. That's it. You're in. You've subscribed under the program. What would qualify as an energy efficiency action by a resident or a business?
Well, it's adding more insulation. I don't know, Tara, you could probably speak to this better than I could, because ours was primarily an emphasis on heat pumps.
Yeah, it has to basically be a contractor installed energy efficiency. So it can't be a DIY, your own spray foam. It has to be a contractor project to upgrade.
And there's no threshold necessarily for how efficient, like, you go from an R this to an R that, or
Nope, it can just be like installing a few more efficient windows. It could be just maybe doing your attic. So in the same thing with the heat pumps, it can just be one mini split. It doesn't need to be full house.
That's great. And then does Steve and Tara, does this RICOR, for example, do they do energy efficiency upgrades? Obviously, new windows, you'd have to have a contractor come in, and it's a lot more, or a spray foam specialist come in for insulation, or so that's not something that obviously they're doing. But is there a company that does energy efficiency audits that would be what we would be promoting? I mean, that's a little less clear. We who is the vendor that we're working with on the energy efficiency side?
Yeah, I mean, I think the RICOR does not do energy efficiency work. They only do heat pumps, but we struggled to get an energy efficiency contractor on a lot of campaigns because there's just not a lot out there. There is one called Global Dwelling Solutions that the county may want to partner with that does this type of work, but we just didn't have a lot of luck with like the communication piece of it. So there may be somebody that does more of this type of work that you all are familiar with in Columbia County. I'm just not sure.
Would it qualify to just have someone come out and do an assessment and audit, or it has to be an upgrade?
It has to be an upgrade. It can't just be an audit.
And
I'm sorry.
What I was going to suggest is one is company is the Columbia Opportunities.
Right.
That we had them come out, and I think they've done a number of programs in the community itself. And Brenda, sorry to interrupt, but
No, I think that's a great idea. But the other possibility is the community college, because they have, HVAC and construction program training. So we might want to think about maybe we could partner with them to make sure that it's not just the traditional methods, but it's these more contemporary climate smart types of projects. Because the problem with finding a contractor is getting the certification, and we should at least make sure that our local community college is turning out these certifications to help with the labor pool.
Mm-hmm. And different than community solar, this is an expenditure by the business, the resident or the business. Community solar, as we all know, you just sign up, you don't have to pay anything. In fact, you get a bonus. This is quite distinct in that you're signing up and then you're paying for something. So partnering with either the company, if it offers financing, or other opportunities for, I know there are the Heat Smart program and there are other programs that provide grants. We just need to fold that information and those opportunities into our efforts to make sure that we're targeting a broad array of people in the county, and that we're making it affordable and accessible to as many people as we can. Just a general comment and thought to keep in mind. Tistria, you're muted.
Just to address what Brenda said, and Steve, you can elaborate further, but New Lebanon also did a green jobs analysis. It was focused on New Lebanon, but we worked with Columbia Green Community College. And the focus really was what jobs are available in the green job industry and what training / school is available within the county to get people certified for that. And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but heat pump installer was one of the jobs that was found to be needed in New Lebanon. And it was one of the training programs that Columbia Green Community College could offer people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and I think it would be a natural progression to reach out to them again, and because we work with them also as part of the Green Jobs program, and try to get them on board for it. So great idea.
My understanding is that you can come out of a certification program and earn, $60 an hour, and in a year be earning $80, or a year or two be earning $80 an hour. So, for a young person in our community, that's a substantial wage.
Absolutely. Rycor mentioned in our interviews with them that they have 8 people who are making upwards of $100,000 in heat pump installations.
Right.
Green innovation economy. By the way, what has New Lebanon not done? That's what we're going to do at our next meeting. We're going to have a game.
The EV campaign has just been approved by the CSC task force, so we're going to work on that next.
That's great. That's great. So yeah, the EV campaign is similar. It's one of these community campaigns, same kind of format. And in that case, we would be, and Steve, you can talk about your experience there too. Take a moment. We would be partnering, I presume, with a dealership or multiple dealerships or car companies and then communicating that information out to the public. And we would get credit upon a purchase or a lease of a car. Is that right?
Yes, correct. I don't know, Tara, you can clarify about leases. I'm not sure how that works. No?
Leases don't count. Neither do secondhand. It has to be a brand new vehicle, which I'm hoping NYSERDA will change because there's so many supply issues right now. But
okay. So, and Steve, are you, just to kind of put a little more detail on how that would work, are you going to vet individual dealerships and then select one or multiple ones to kind of partner with in the promotion and the campaign?
Yeah, this is basically just approved last night, so we haven't moved forward beyond that, and the town board still has to approve it. But hopefully that won't be an issue. But yes, I see reaching out. There's only one dealership that I know of in town, so we don't have a lot of options here. But yeah, we had talked about potentially even having them at our county picnic because they do have a couple of EV. It's a Ford dealership, a couple of EVs there on their lot and promoting it that way.
There were people that were dropping by just to see the new trucks. The first trucks came. They had a couple of trucks there last week or the week before.
Oh, they had the Lightning? The F-150?
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
I think they were pre-ordered, so I don't think they were there very long, but it was interesting to see people gathering to see them.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, because I know I said this a while back, and I cannot take credit for this because it really is Steve and Mark and the task force, but the town is on track to have over $40,000 in incentive money through both the Clean Energies Community and the Climate Smart Community programs, and potentially another $70,000. We're working on that now. We're looking at installing heat pumps throughout the entire town hall and or solar panels at almost no cost to the town. So I just want to encourage the county, and I know, we don't need to get into the detail. I know the county amounts are probably different. The point system's probably different. I would imagine maybe the county even gets more, but through some of these actions, like a heat pump campaign, it's such a win-win because you are getting households to adopt cleaner energy ways of heating and cooling that are more efficient and beneficial to them. But there's also a potential bonus and incentive to the county. And what we've done where we started getting some of these NYSERDA incentives, I would certainly make this pitch to my board. It would be their decision. And I hope that Supervisor Collins and Adams would join me. We set up a revenue account. So all the money that the efforts of the CSC makes in New Lebanon are going to be invested into clean energy upgrades for the town, which is up to the CSC to present to the town board, hey, we think we should do solar. Here's why, here's the cost. So we're really keeping it separate. So it doesn't just get put into, offsetting taxes or something, but these are efforts for clean energy that we can then take these rebates and incentives and put them back in to energy upgrades and efficiencies. So I don't know how much like Wendy and Tara have talked about like the county incentives. And I know a lot of the money we're getting is actually through the Clean Energies Community Program. And I'm sure the county system is different from the town system and maybe not all the incentives are available, but I would encourage, those conversations to be looked at as well, because Steve has done such a phenomenal job. We just sat down the other day and I thought, wow, how much money are we getting? That is a lot of money. And then, $80,000 to put heat pumps in the town hall would be something we wouldn't budget for. That's a huge portion of our tax base. And instead, we're potentially able to do something like that. So I think there's a win-win-win potential here.
Yeah, not to mention all the money you're going to save once you install those things. So that is great news. We have our last item. We're not there yet, but later on, we're going to talk about our 12-month plan, and we'll come back to these two campaigns. So unless there are other questions or comments, we'll move forward and we'll get back to it.
I would just say something a little different, but in addition to what Tistria said, we are tracking these monies on separate budget lines so we can see what we've brought in, and so that we can also allocate them for green related projects as opposed to just putting them into the general fund. And I think it's important for the public to see, but I think it's important for the board to see what this work produces. We're currently tracking it on separate budget lines.
And if I could add just to that, sorry to prolong it, but actually the NYSERDA money that comes through the CEC program has to be used for energy related programs at the town or county level.
A smart restriction. So doesn't go into the black box. And I would imagine that we would be setting this campaign, if we choose to go forward, the board approves it, setting these campaigns up similarly to the way we did the community solar one, where we could allow towns to piggyback on the campaign. Tara, it would work consistently, right? There's no particular difference for these campaigns, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
So, and these have not been done by, unlike community solar, where we had a bunch of towns that have been doing those, New Lebanon may be the only one in the county that I know of. Maybe there's one or two more that have done any of these other campaigns, the more exotic ones. And the last of the four is demand planning, and we're going to have a special session to talk about that because it's so complicated. So there are four of these community campaigns, but we'll get back to this. So let's just move forward on. Just a quick note from Kara here. She's jumping off. Thank you, Kara. She said, working with two solar developers, community solar specifically for low-income households in Columbia County. I'll reach out to okay. I'll follow up Kara and find out what she's talking about there. So the next item on our agenda is benchmarking. Wendy, could you just quickly tell us? I know that's, I think, been all submitted. Is that wrapped up with a bow? And when might we hear about that?
So benchmarking, the Commissioner of Public Works reviewed my information, has given me the okay. It will be posted. Patrice in planning is working on putting it on our website because it does need to be posted. So then the next thing that needs to be done is it needs to be put into the clean energy community with NYSERDA. And I don't have access to that kind of thing. Tara, is that something that you upload, or is there access that I can have for that?
Yeah, so it's actually not even a login for those action submissions. It's just a form. So you basically just go to NYSERDA's website. I can send you the link and you plug in the community you're with, your contact information, upload the docs,
okay.
But you don't need a login.
Okay. So it was like what for community solar we did.
Exactly.
Okay.
Same for you're choosing another action.
So that will be done today.
That's great.
Unless anyone has any concerns about the information.
I'm sure you've more than covered that, though any concerns that we might have. So that's great. Thank you, Wendy. That's tremendous. And then I think that qualifies us for a $5,000 grant, which are still available. Steve.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Is that true, Tara? You get a $5,000 grant? I think you just get points.
So the county is actually getting designated by submitting this as a clean energy community.
It's our first. Right.
Yeah, it takes a while for counties because they can't do the code enforcement actions that the towns can. So it takes a bit longer, but this will finally designate the community, which is not as prestigious as Climate Smart certification, but there's money. So.
Take it.
And one last question, Wendy. All of this information was entered into the Energy Star Manager database, right? So, and for us to, what is our obligation for next year or in the future? I mean, the whole point is to try to track this over time and try to have that information so we know that we're improving. We haven't really talked about this, but do you have any thoughts on that? Or are there any obligations under these programs for us to continue doing it? And is it an annual thing? I believe annually, but is what I remember. But I'm not sure.
From my information, I think that we are supposed to be updating this on a yearly basis. So it'll be a continuous endeavor here with the county.
Okay. And then, hopefully it gets easier. Maybe it can be done kind of in-house in the various departments. I don't know. But if there's any help you need from any of us, Bill, I know has been very helpful.
He's been great.
In helping to streamline that so that it's not all on you every year or all on the coordinator every year. Let's think about that before we get to that point. But thank you so much for all that work. I know it was really a lot to pull together. Okay, so we are moving. Task force membership is quick. I've reached out to 2 of our members who have consistently not been at our meetings, and I didn't hear back. I asked if they wanted to have a conversation about their continuing membership. I think we can at some point take that as a tacit response that they're not interested in continuing. What I would like to do is get nominees from this group. We can do that now, or even better, it would be if you email me afterwards, but I will pester you. I think we should really focus on diversity in the county in the broadest sense of the word, geographic diversity, racial, ethnic diversity, gender diversity, making sure that we cover different communities. I mean, that's the bottom line, is we want to make sure that we have voices in this task force that represent the diversity of the community as best we can. I would imagine focusing on 1 or 2 people from Hudson and who are really tied into the particular issues, the more urban issues that are prevalent in Hudson and distinct from the rest of the county. That would be really valuable. There are probably other ideas folks have for better representation. So maybe youth, having some younger member, maybe having even having a high school student, like a standout high school student, join us. That would be exciting. Or someone from the schools, a science teacher, or someone of that along those lines who has a connection to students and younger people in the community. Those are some of the ideas. If you have particular ideas, I think what we'll do is we'll take those and we would vote at the next meeting. We would nominate, and we would then vote on 1, 2, or more new members, and then we would put that forward as a recommendation to the board. So any thoughts on that? Comments, questions?
David, if I reach out to, say, the principal of Ichabod Crane High School and ask for, that's something you look for. So yeah, I'll send him an email today. He sometimes answers me.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think that's right. There's no we don't have to be like discreet. We're not formally inviting people to join. You know,
Yeah,
we can't do that. We don't have to
nominated.
We're looking for interest. You know,
Okay.
we're trying to explain what we do. We're explaining that we're looking for some new members. We're gauging interest, and we can't, if they're interested, we can't guarantee that, you know, or in any way suggest that they will. Therefore, we have the authority to say, oh yeah, we'll get you on the task force. But it's just finding out if there's interest so we can nominate people that were actually going to do it. So that's great, Bill. Thanks. Brenda?
So my only other question is, are there any notable gaps in skill sets on our committee? Are there professional skills or other skills that we might be looking for, might be something we consider as well?
I would say promotions. So both Lucy and Deb were phenomenal on the climate carnival, and we reached outside of the task force because we did not have anyone within the task force that felt like promotion was their skill set. And I think the more we can promote what we're doing as a task force, not just for the carnival, but in general, press releases and other things would be really beneficial. So I don't know. I know, Bruce, you're friends with both Deb and Lucy. I don't know if you wanted to reach out to both of them and see if they might be willing to join, as well as anyone else that might know someone with a promotion skill set.
I mean, I could reach out to Deb. Lucy's in school and in the city most of the time. So, but I'll see if Deb's interested. I'll informally discuss it with her.
Great.
But Kara feels comfortable with promotion, and Kara left the meeting, but she's on the committee, and I think sometimes she's pretty comfortable with promotion as well. She did pretty well on our first repair cafe, so we could ask her.
Great. I just know we came to this committee, I think, twice looking for someone to help with promotions, and there wasn't anybody.
Right. Well, Kara's busy all the time.
Yeah. So maybe somebody who has time to do more promotions, but just an idea.
Yeah. I'll ask them.
So I'm going to just really ask that everyone here do their best to provide at least one name within the next few weeks. So we're in advance of our next meeting. And then if you want to nominate after that conversation, that person, you'll be the one to speak about who they are and why they would be a good fit on the task force. And then we'll take a vote. We're going to have a limit in the number. I don't know. We don't have a formal set limit. We obviously can't take too many more people. So that's another conversation we need to have. If 2 people drop off, are we looking for 2 more people? Or would we go above that number? I don't really have a problem going above it because people participate. But Tistria, do you have any thoughts on that or something else?
I have a question, and I don't know if we even have this or if either Wendy or David could create this. Could you email us right now? I don't need names, but like New Lebanon has 2 members. Ghent has 1 member. I would like to see if there's any towns throughout the county that don't even have 1 member, because nobody on this committee necessarily is going to reach out to that person. They're probably going to reach out to their friends and neighbors within their community. And I'd be happy as a supervisor if we find a town or 2 or 3 that doesn't have any representation on this committee. I'd be happy to reach out to that supervisor and say, is there anyone within your community that might be a good fit? Because I do think geographical representation is important, because part of the role of this task force is to help towns, right? So if we're talking about, for example, signing on to this resiliency plan, and that supervisor doesn't catch the email from Matt, and there's no one on this committee to go and say, hey, we really need to sign on to this, they might lose out on that opportunity. And so I do think it's important to take a look at where currently all of the task force members are from and where we might be having gaps in that sense.
Maureen, I think you have a list. Is that right? You must have a list, but I know we have our email list that we use, but is there a list with contact information?
Tistria, I just emailed it to you.
Oh, thanks, Wendy.
Perfect.
Right. So I'll look at that and I'll call supervisors of any town or the city of Hudson that's not represented. Okay,
and with that, we should really be also trying to focus in on not just anyone from that town, but are there particular skills or, like we mentioned, education, youth, maybe someone affiliated with the schools? That would be great to try to, or is there some kind of diversity other than geographic diversity that would be, that we could capture with the right person, promotions, and perhaps there are some other characteristics or skills that we would want. So thanks, Tistria, and everyone, please send me your recommendations if you have any, and we'll pick this up at the next meeting. But there are, I mean, is there any other thought on the size of the task force? I like the size we have. Not everyone participates equally. Not everyone participates consistently, but we have a good group here. We're going to try to identify whether those couple of members that haven't participated really at all are what their story is, and will likely they'll drop off, and so we'll have some space. Brenda?
So I'm sorry, I had to step away for a minute. I think if we were to increase the size of the task force, that's something that would have to go to the Board of Supervisors. So I think if we were looking at this with a mindset to replace the members that are dropping off, that's one conversation. But I think if the task force were to get larger, we'd need to talk about that with the board.
Yep. I think we have to do it either way. I think anyone who's on the task force was formally appointed by the board. So your point is right, and it's even for replacing those two people, we'd still have to do that. So my thought is we would vote at the next meeting on some nominees. If we want to try to narrow it down to two, we can do that. Maybe we add a third or fourth if we really have compelling people that we want to include. There's no real reason to limit it to that number, to our current number. And then we would recommend that we would nominate those people to the board for the next meeting. All right. I believe that's it. So before we get to the 12-month priorities, Terrence had something he wanted to bring to the group. Terrence, you still with us?
I am. Yeah, thanks. And I think this could also tie into what we were talking about in terms of outreach to the entire county. But for several years before this task force formed, one of the roles that CLC played in the county with Christine Vanderlen, who's moved on to DEC, was to convene the county municipal CACs. I think twice a year in a kind of a roundtable format to bring everyone together and see who's doing what and what learning go on between the two, between everyone. And now that Christine's moved on, CLC is wondering, should we continue playing that role? Or thinking back on the meeting we had, I think it was last September, and that was with a broad amount of CACs and EMCs. Is that something that would make sense for the county climate smart task force to spearhead? And in that, it could be a committee that I'm leading, but it might be a way for us to continue the work that we started last year, kind of formalize it so that we have a standard protocol and really link together everyone who's doing this work in the county on a regular basis. And I just wondered, I want to put that out there to the group and see if we could have a discussion on that and how everyone was feeling about that. I see Brenda's hand.
Terrence, how many CACs are there?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd have to go back to my list. I feel like it was between 8 and 10,
Okay.
but I'm not totally sure. And then there's, I think, primarily that was just at like for CACs, but I know that there are also EMCs working in the county, and there's overlap between members and activities. So it seems like what we did last year, where kind of trying to get everyone together, might be helpful.
Well, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, and I'm sorry, again, not to be more informed in this area, but I don't understand the difference between CACs and EMCs and where how their work is defined. So I would love to know more about that, and I can speak to you offline if that makes sense.
That's fine. I'll have to look into it myself. It wasn't a role of mine before Christine left, and so I've only.
Mike's got his hand up. You might be able to help us.
Yeah.
Sure. The difference is just the territory they cover. A CAC is inherently one town or village, and the EMC is a county. But otherwise, they were created under a New York state law back in the early 1970s that set the stage, created the format that counties and towns and cities could establish these things or not.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Sure.
So CAC members may, but are not necessarily default members to the EMC.
That's correct.
Okay, may be, but are not. Okay. And the CACs come up with work plans for their community?
Yes. And well, the the law says that they should first focus on doing a natural resource inventory. That then makes them an official CAC in the eyes of the DEC, and the same thing for the county in the EMC. So those things having been done, the committee decides what they want to focus on in the realm of environmental issues that are particular to their territory.
So were those plans shared with the county emergency management and the hazard mitigation team?
There's no rule that they must be, but if those plans are thought to be important to those plans, to the emergency management and hazard mitigation, then certainly I think they should be, but it's not a requirement.
Because that seems like that would be one way to reduce redundancy, if any, if this work has already been done and is housed in various organizations that it's shared with, county staff. And I do believe that our the county's emergency management plan is a 5-year plan, and that we are planning on updating that plan next year. So this sounds like a timely conversation for sharing information.
I agree. I'll put out the word to all of my members in the EMC that this is an upcoming opportunity to share those plans with the county.
And if we've done a natural resource inventory, but we don't have a CAC, do you think I'm talking about my town now, do you think it might make sense to initiate a CAC based on the fact that we've done this basic work?
Certainly.
Okay.
So if it's something that would make sense to come from the county task force, I'm happy to work with a couple of members. I think, Michael, you'd probably be a great person to speak with about this. And we have all of our contact information for the CACs. So I think I would probably next try to put together an email to do outreach with them and see if it would be of interest to them. And I just know that it was something that we had finished the last year's meeting that we hoped to be in person. I think we followed that up feeling like, oh, that was great. We should keep doing that. And I figured this would be a way to do that. John, I see your hand raised as well.
Yeah, I have a question about some of the roles of the CAC. In Clabrook, we did not have one. And I get the impression that in a lot of towns that do, the CAC is very active in monitoring what goes on in terms of the planning board, and will show up and advocate, make sure that conservation issues are paid attention to, and that's something that I see. It doesn't happen very often in Clabrook, and I'm just wondering if is that considered sort of a formal role of the CACs, and I'd like to understand more how that happens, because I think it's important for both plan development and plan enforcement.
Exactly. Well, there's two different levels of CAC involvement. And the first one depends on a collaborative relationship between the CAC and the planning board, in which perhaps the CAC members would have a delegation that goes to the planning board meetings and looks for opportunities to intervene if appropriate. We've done that a bit in Hudson. The approval process for a new parking lot for the hospital came before the board, and we submitted a plan for how the stormwater might be handled differently, as well as improved tree coverage to the parking lot. So that was a particular example of where we did intervene. The next level, though, is based on certain accomplishments on the CAC's part. They can ask to become a conservation advisory board, in which they are administratively tied to the planning board, and every decision that the planning board makes needs to be passed through the CAB to get their either non-objection or approval. So it depends on the intentions. We have qualified for that status here in Hudson, but for because of manpower issues and time issues, we decided not to pursue that status.
Thanks.
Just adding on to what Michael said. Basically, we had an issue with a storage facility going to be on right at the gateway to the Shaker Swamp, and the CAC was just one group that worked for that. So it was more of an informal thing. But some of the other projects that our CAC did is we did critical environmental area designation, where we picked critical environmental areas in the town to be designated, and then the town board passed proposals for that. We've also got involved in Trees for Trips program, where you can get money from the state to plant trees to help the local environment along tributaries and stuff in the streams. So I mean, there's all different activities that can be there. But the thing Michael said about the getting involved with the planning board, I didn't know about that. That might be something worth exploring. Thank you.
And I know from the one roundtable meeting that I participated in last spring that several CACs spoke about kind of wanting some direction. They had formed this group, but it seemed to be that one outcome from these types of meetings could be that, yeah, we're starting to cross communicate about where they can go from there, or seeing specific examples of actions taken by one CAC might lead another CAC to come up with a focus area that they otherwise wouldn't.
That was very much in most of the meetings that Christine ran. People would share what they were doing and with the other towns, and they would get ideas from that. So I think it's a very good effort to reestablish that.
I just sent our mission statement from the New Lebanon CAC there, if anybody wants to see it.
So what are the logical next steps here, Terrence?
I don't know if this is something we would have to make a motion on and vote on here, or if it would just be kind of a couple shows of hands of people I could circle up with after this meeting. And then we could communicate amongst ourselves before I do some outreach to the CAC contacts that we have. And then based on that interest, we could bring it back to this group. We were hoping to have a roundtable in the fall. And so I think this next month would be establishing when that could be, where it could be, and what the content would be.
Right. I think we should, I think that makes sense. Circle up with some more people, bring some written information to our next meeting with a proposal as to what you'd like to see from this task force, or what you'd like to see this task force do to help promote this effort. And then we can, and you and I should talk before, and we can figure out if there is a motion that we get it out there ahead of time. So why don't we talk at least a week ahead of the next meeting about that, and we'll get that organized. I don't know if anyone else has other specific thoughts at this point. You can share them with Terrence offline as well, and we'll revisit this at the next meeting. Does that sound good?
Sure, Terrence, I'd be happy to work with you on the CAC round table, some more help.
Great. So I'll include Bruce and Michael in an email if that's okay. Kind of volunteering you, Mike.
That's fine.
And if anybody else wants to, you can either tell me now, or you can just send me an email afterwards.
While we're on the topic of volunteering, Michael, can I volunteer you to help us with the community solar outreach in Hudson?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you so much. You always say yes. It's really quite pleasant. Satishia.
Mine's a different topic. So if there's other questions on this topic, please answer those.
We're ready to move on. And then
All
we
right,
have one more item, but go ahead.
I'm going back just because I just looked at the list that Wendy sent me, and it's interesting. So we have no Claremont, Gallatin, Greenport, Hillsdale, which surprised me, Livingston, Stockport, or Taconic. So I'm going to reach out to those supervisors, but I'm also going to email Wendy. I'll send you the email. If you can email the whole task force, because maybe somebody has a friend in Hillsdale, even though they don't live in Hillsdale, that might know, along the lines of what David was talking about with other diversity as well. And we only have one from Hudson. So Hudson could also, like you said, David, be another focus where we bring in more energy.
Yeah, I think that's important.
But it's interesting to see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 towns that don't have any representation on this committee. So
isn't Matt Stinchcomb from Gallatin?
Oh, he's listed with his organization. So I take that back. There's a few people that are listed like with their organization, like Terrence is CLC. So I don't know what town. Terrence, what town are you in? Chatham, right?
He's out of the county, I think.
Oh, out of county. Okay.
And I'm actually in Ulster County, where I think they're going to have the fair as part of their county fair coming up.
So yeah, like Matt Stinchcomb, I don't have his town. I don't have Jolene or Patrice or Wendy. Well, I know where Wendy is. Claudia Kenny, who's a farmer. So some of them are listed as their organization, not their town. So I could follow up there too and see where some of them live.
Great. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Of course. Thank you. The last item is a big item, but we are going to continue to work on it to focus in on what our next projects, our project priorities should be over the next 12 months. And it sounds like we've already covered some potential projects, not covered, but we've started the conversation. Having a potential role with within the county organizing broader meetings is something that we can, it's part of our mandate for sure. Education, organizing, being a convening body. That's something which Terrence will bring back to us in this context with CACs. The campaigns that Steve gave us updates on, the heat pump and the EV campaign. I personally think that we should really seriously consider moving forward quickly on that, getting authorization to start organizing around those. We can talk about that. The resilience plan, it looks like that's actually moving forward. So that's really exciting. And then the ideas, and I want to open it up for others yet, but the greenhouse gas inventory would be a big project that would go beyond the benchmarking, and we do need to do that at some point. It's a county; it makes sense to be county-wide. Towns can participate and get credit, and that kind of underpins the results of that will inform the climate action plan that we eventually would want to write. This is probably a multi-year type of enterprise, both of those things. We will need some funding for the inventory or some technical support in kind. So perhaps this is something we wait on until we have raised some more money and we have some money to work with if this is something we vote as a priority. But I'll throw that out there. Other education and outreach, and then other ideas entirely. So I wanted just to open this up as a brainstorm. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Maybe that was just an aside. So are there other thoughts on the actions and the projects that I mentioned? A lot of enthusiasm, any cause for concern? And then also, are there other ideas entirely that we should be putting on the table? Bill?
Yes. Are we going to pursue charging stations in the county?
Thank you very much for that. I actually wanted to get an update from Ron, and he's not in the meeting.
Okay.
So I think I'll have to do that offline unless anyone else has any more information. We had a presentation on this large grant opportunity for a DC fast charging station or stations in the county. And I think there was a lot of enthusiasm. We had even started talking about suggested spots locations. And there were some concerns raised at that meeting about the ongoing costs, maybe the costs that aren't as obvious, the software costs, whether they're being used effectively enough to cover those costs. Those concerns, very legitimate concerns about the municipal budgets and who would end up holding the bag there. I know that Denal had articulated that concern, and I don't remember if Ron actually articulated that, or I was imagining he was thinking it. But So that was a hesitation, and then there was no further action. So you're right, Bill. That could be something that we're working on. I don't know if anyone else has other updates from speaking with Ron, perhaps, but we should find out from him where we're at with that. And I don't know if Denal, if you have anything to add on the DC fast charging, or Brenda.
No, I think it's time for a check-in with him to see where he is on that. And I also just wanted to say we've been approached, the town of Canaan has been approached by a vendor who would like to do a Tesla charging station at the Berkshire Spur, a fairly large Tesla charging station. So that might contribute to our efforts as well if we were to get a collection of Tesla chargers there.
And Tesla has been saying that they're planning on universalizing their charging to make it accessible to non-Tesla cars. So that would be.
And it's interesting, I did talk to the Love's Truck and Convenience Station. And while they were initially interested in EV chargers, they felt that their site was too small for the time it would take for vehicles to charge, and that they didn't offer enough services for cars to offset the loss of real estate for the chargers. So I was just thinking about that as we're looking at site plans for businesses going forward. We ought to think about, is there room to add charging stations, whether they've planned them or not. They may, businesses may need them in the future. So I talked to our planning board chairperson about that.
Tara?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we, as part of this DEC funding for the resiliency planning, we are also funded CDRPC to do free greenhouse gas inventories and climate action plans for municipalities. So I didn't want to overwhelm you guys by asking that, because I know the resiliency planning itself is going to be a big effort, but if there's capacity, we're here to help with that. And that goes for any individual municipality as well, although I know a number have already done it. Lebanon did it, Austerlitz did it. Haley, my colleague, is working with a few towns right now to do their government operations inventory. So I just wanted to make that aware that we are here as free technical support to do that.
Thank you, Tara. That's great. Are any of those inventories community-wide, or are they all government operations?
Yes, there is community-wide too. We're still working on that template with our tech support contractor who's, refining it. He really wants to do one regionally, and so does the DEC, because it really makes sense when you're talking about community inventories instead of piecemeal town by town. But we do absolutely have the government piece.
Okay. Is regional, is the desire to do something multi-county, or it would be great if we could participate in something without and something bigger. I agree. The bigger, it doesn't make sense for us to do all that work and then have it just have limited impact. But if we could do a 4 or 5 county wide, and then we would have our specific information that we could operate with.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And there was a capital region greenhouse gas inventory done in 2010. So it hopefully would look similar to that, but updated, where it had the region and then it breaks out the counties and the towns individually as well. So that's the goal, I think.
And that would be an easier lift, I think, for us and also for the board to wrap their heads around. I think, it's not just our county responsible for our own inventory, but we're participating in something bigger. I think that would be an easier sell and more valuable, and also easier for like the utilities that have to provide a lot of data, and other, DOT and other agencies that you get the information from. So that's on the table. I think that's a really important one. So that's out there as a potential action. We right now, it looks like if you're just looking ahead at the next year, we don't have much more work on the community solar. We're going to try to make a big push in Hudson, as we said, and we will be working on the carnival. That will be a big project over the next year for sure. And perhaps there's charging stations. That's not clear at all. The resilience plan, it looks like that will go forward, and that will require some of our time. I believe we have room to take on more than we should. And if New Lebanon is any inspiration and any example, we absolutely should. What is the sense of this group? I don't want to assume that folks are eager to do a lot more than what we've already committed to, but I hope we can. How do people feel about it, and what would rise to the top? Brenda.
I just want to go back to the EV charging stations. When I was in London a month or so ago, I noticed that the town or the city had decided to really incentivize the use of electric vehicles. So they had set up designated prime parking for electric vehicles. That's where they'd install their charging stations. But also, I was wondering if their technology is different than ours, because the chargers were installed in existing historic cast iron street lamps. They weren't, new standalone appliances that had to be duplicated every so many cars. They also had initiated policies for if you had an electric vehicle, you could travel in a high occupancy vehicle, even if you only had one occupant because you had an electrical vehicle. There were all kind of incentives so that you could. It was so different from the last time I was there. The smell, the smell of gas, the smell of diesel was gone. It's a quiet city because I would say conservatively 60 to 70% of the vehicles, both the commercial vehicles and the vehicles that we use, were electric.
Wow.
So it changed the whole sound and appearance and smell of the city. But I'm thinking that it's not just there's some policy applications to this. How can communities, especially towns and villages, incentivize these uses? I mean, if you had, not just your parking off to the side somewhere, but somewhere where it made a difference, so that it would encourage people to have an electric vehicle. So I think we should also think about policy. I do agree with you. I think we have room to take on more capacity. And even though I know we're not doing this for points, I'm hoping that we might get to silver status next year based on the projects that we decide to take on.
Okay, just to reiterate, we are likely working on the CARP, which is the Climate Adaptation Resilience Plan. We'll call it the CARP from now on. The community solar, at least through the end of the year. The Climate Carnival. Benchmarking is an annual thing, so we'll have to bring that back up. That also could feed into or be part of a larger greenhouse gas inventory. I think those are that's the current work. I might have missed something. And then let me know if I have. And then the potential work, and I'm assuming CARP is going to go forward there, obviously. DC fast charging, greenhouse gas inventory, heat pump campaign, CAC roundtable, for the lack of a better term or name to capture that work, and EV charging campaign. There are others. We can look back. Don't forget to check in on the action list every now and then and see if anything pops up as an obvious candidate. But I see at least 5 potential new projects. Not all of them we can do all at once, but we can put them forward and vote on those 5. I would, we can, actually, what I can do is follow up with an email and ask everyone to rank them 1 through 5, and we can come back in the next meeting with a little bit more informed kind of sense of the group, and we can then have a discussion and decide what we want to recommend to move forward with. Okay, and let me know if there's something else. Let me know in the next day or two if something else pops up that you think should be on that list of candidates. And I'll include that in my email. Great. A lot of work to do. Good work. Good work. We'll get some fresh blood too. That's always good. All right. That's all I have. That's a good meeting though. I think we covered a lot of ground. Anything else? Great. Well, it's hot, but we're cooking in multiple ways. And we're doing good work. So appreciate it. I hope everyone's enjoying their summer. I hope they get cool today. I hope it rains, and we will all talk soon.
Oh, excuse me, David.
Yes.
Did you want to go over the meeting minutes?
Oh, yeah.
July 7th and July
That's right.
12th?
I'm sorry. So we have two meeting minutes that I sent out, two meetings, the formal, the monthly meeting, and then we have the special meeting on the CARP that followed. I sent the draft minutes out. Do we have any comments or corrections on either of the either set of minutes? Okay. We have we want to approve the minutes then. Do we have a motion to approve both of them? Michael?
I'll second.
Bill? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please speak the opposition. Okay, adopted unanimously. And as a formal group, as an informal group that doesn't have to follow the open meetings laws, I will pass on a motion to close the meeting and we can just close it. But before I do that, does anyone have anything else? I don't think so. Great. Thank you. Thank you for your time. We'll talk soon. Have a great day.